Actually, no. Dr. Beasley's World.
Very good.
Is that how it goes?
Yeah.
Wayne's World.
Yeah.
Hey, everybody out there in Cyberland. This is me, the camera guy, and then the voice of the Nether, Yancey. And y'all know who this is, Mr. Mike Phillips. And today we are getting our TV debut.
Yeah. Well, this is an iconic car from the TV world. It's a 1978 AMC Pacer.
All right, and what are we doing to it?
This thing has horrible holograms.
Okay.
And for the life of me, it also has swirls and straight line scratches. And for the life of me, and I know you too, we always wonder, how can people abuse their cars like this?
Every time I go to the grocery store or to Target or something like that, I look and I drive in and park and I'm like, do they not see that? Or is it just a curse that we have since we work in this industry?
Yes.
But enough of me talking. I just thought I'd come on and help introduce the show, have a little bit of fun here. You know, detailing is not all serious, so we just got to have some fun. He's going to discuss some of this out of this. And also we want to make sure that you follow us on all of our socials. That's at Dr. Beasley's. That's on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. Be sure to smash the hit like button, subscribe button, notify button, just everything. So with that, I'm going to go back over here. Mike, it is all you.
You do you, I'll do me. Okay, as we mentioned, this is a part of a private collection. There's also an AMC 1975 AMC Gremlin over here, and I kind of call these the gruesome twosome. Believe it or not, these cars were considered compact cars back in the 70s when we had the gas crunch. And this one is actually known kind of as a fishbowl because it has so much glass surrounding it that you looked like you're driving around in a upside down fishbowl when you drove the car like this. But I've been commissioned to bring the best results out of the paint on both of these cars. And from my experience, to me, it looks like they've been repainted at some point. There's fish eyes. This has massive orange peel. But I don't know, because I don't remember the paint quality of AMC cars back into the 70s. So, I mean, when I look at this and there's fish eyes here, maybe this is as good as AMC was putting out back then.
Grab your light.
I just don't know. Here you go. So we'll walk over here. Here's a great way to see the holograms. Is that working for you?
Yep, right there. All right.
And we're going to talk about holograms and swirls. And some people think they're the same, but they're kind of different. And I always tell people it's important that we understand what the words mean, so when we talk to one another, whether it's online or in the real world, we really have a clear idea of what we're saying. So swirls are just random scratches. So if you've got contaminants in your towel, contaminants in your wash mitt, contaminants in your drying towel, and as you're wiping or washing or drying the towel, you randomly just put scratches in over time, this creates what we call swirls. And what you do is when you look at the sun or a strong focal point of light, it looks like they're in a circle, but they're actually not. They're random everywhere, but they're all reflecting into that point of light. So they look like swirls or cobwebs or spider webs. So that's what swirls are. Now holograms are also scratches in the paint, but what makes them different than just random scratches or swirls is they're inflicted typically by the fibers and the compound of a wool pad. There you go. And then when you look at them, they mimic, they leave a wispy or holographic or 3D looking line besides the circular scratches that mimic the direction the pad or the buffer was moved over the paint. So that's how you can quickly tell if you're looking at a car in the sun or with good inspection lights if the car has just swirls or swirls plus holograms. And that means someone improperly buffed it with a wool pad and a rotary. Now I want to make it very clear, I love wool pads and rotaries. They're great to start with. Just don't finish with them. And because when you do, you leave holograms in the paint. So then the next thing I kind of wanted to talk about was, there's two things. One, both of these cars, I've already done a little test spot on them. They're both single stage metallic. Okay, so in my opinion, single stage metallic paints, these would be called old school, so they're probably solvent evaporation lacquers or enamels, probably enamels. They are the most difficult paint to restore when they go bad. And you're going to see in a second why. But the reason why is the flake in this is actually microscopic little pieces of real aluminum, metallic flake. Metallic means metal. Metal is the aluminum. It's a metal. It's an aluminum flake finish. And just like aluminum, if you want to look at that slotted mag up there, just like the aluminum wheels on a car will oxidize, the aluminum flake in this paint will oxidize. And so when you buff a single stage metallic finish, instead of your pad turning the color of the pigment, it will turn the same color it would turn if you were polishing a slotted mag. And if you've ever done this before, polished, uncoated aluminum, you start with a white cloth and say some mag wheel polish. Both things are white, and you turn it over and it turns black. So my pad, instead of turning tan, or if I were to buff on this car green, it's going to turn black. And that's the sign of a single stage metallic paint. And over the course of time, each and every single little aluminum flake in this paint is sitting there oxidizing. You come along and buff it, you pull the oxidation off. Of course you pull it off with paint too, but you don't see the color of the paint, you see the color of the oxidation. And then what makes it even trickier is as you're buffing, if you push too hard, use too aggressive of a compound, or basically just don't know what you're doing, you can leave a pattern in the paint that not only has, like holograms, but you've flipped the flake. You've left a pattern in the paint that mimics the way you move the polisher over the paint, and these are called tiger stripes. And this is pretty common to see in old single-stage metallic paints. So you don't do it with, really do it with non-metallic paints, but you do it with metallic paints. So very, very tricky. I'd say it's one of the hardest paints to work on is a single-stage metallic paint. And that's another reason why they're really risky to ever machine or hand wet sand or dry sand, is because it's easy enough to sand. Remember, sanding is always putting scratches in. Anybody can do that. The tricky part is getting them out. And when you go to get them out, because now you're trying to get sanding works out, you're pushing on that buffer, you risk putting in the tiger stripes. So it takes a lot of skill to work on something like this. And then let me talk about the holograms themselves. So Yancey came over and picked up some of the holograms. They're really prevalent on the hood, but they're everywhere in the car, which means whoever buffed this out, they used the same tool, the same product over the entire car. And after that first initial step, they stopped. But one of the things I noticed was the holograms are also very deep, okay? So you have two things that can put the hologram scratch in. You got the fibers that make up a wool pad, but you also have the abrasive technology that is in your compounds, your polishes, or your AIOs, okay? And there's, look, I divide abrasive technology, and anybody that's been following me for the last few decades knows that I'm a paint polisher. I'm really not known as a carpet cleaner, I'm known as a paint polisher.
You could have fooled me on that.
And a lot of guys, that's what we like to do. We like to polish paint, and girls too. And also the detail kid, I think he's like me, likes to polish paint. And it's kind of the fun part, because you take something that's neglected, and you take something that's like a neglected car, and you turn it into a glistening gemstone. There's a sense of pride and satisfaction that comes from saving somebody's finish on their prized possession, which is usually something, I'm not going to say this
is normally too what everybody sees.
Yeah, I'm not going to say this was cool. I'm going to say it is iconic, though.
Oh, come on.
So anyway, where was I going with that? The abrasive technology. So I divide abrasive technology into two groups, and I don't really like to use foul language on camera, but there's great, and then there's wrap, and put a letter C in front of the word wrap. Okay, so there's great stuff and everything else is junk. There is no abrasive technology that's kind of good. Okay, and so here's how this works. If the good abrasive technology or great abrasive technology has the ability to remove a defect without leaving its own defect, okay? All the junky stuff will remove defects, but it leaves its own defect behind, okay? So then now what are you gonna do? You gotta come back and keep doing more steps to finally get the defects out that you're putting in, trying to remove defects. It's a catch-22 cycle. So I'm happy to say the Dr. Beasley's NSP primers are very unique in that they're a micron size spherical abrasive that's perfectly round. And what that means is no matter where they're at the paint, they're always cutting. So it's very efficient. And most compounds, or probably besides Dr. Beasley's, all compounds use antiquated oils and silicones and other carrying agents that don't completely suspend the abrasives embodied in that carrying agent. And so what this uses is called nanogel technology, and it does two things. It equally distributes the abrasive technology throughout itself, and as you're using it, it starts to lay down ceramic protection. So that's why with Dr. Beasley's NSP products, you don't got to come back with the panel wipe to try to remove silicones or oils. You can go right to the coating. Saves you a step. Plus, anybody that's ever tried to put a ceramic coating on super soft paint, the panel wipe process, you risk scratching it because it scratches so easy. So now you don't got to do that. You can polish out, go right to the coating. Anyway, enough talking, Nancy. Anyway, I did bring out a paint thickness gauge. Again, I don't know, let me turn it on. I don't know what AMC paint was like back in the old days. There's 7.8, 7.9, 7.9. If we go to this side, 8.2. You know, so I did a bunch of testing. It's in a range of a high 6 point to a low 9 point. So it is kind of a uniform paint thickness gauge. So it's a uniform paint thickness throughout the entire finish. So the first thing I want to do is I want to talk about your rotary polisher. This is the Flex PE150 cordless, my favorite rotary. Batteries last forever, a lot of power, all the power I'm going to need in order to do what I'm going to do here. And lightweight and quiet. So it's got stainless steel gears in here. That's why it's quiet. A lot of rotaries have stamped steel gears and they growl when you buff with them. The most important thing though is to put your pad on so it's completely centered. And one of the tips I like to share with people is I'll spend 10-15 minutes reapplying that pad to the backing plate and make sure it's centered so it buffs smooth. And then once I get it so it's centered, I'll take an ink pen or a felt pen and spin it and then just kind of run the pen around the edge of the backing plate, which will mark it and match it to my backing plate on my tool. It makes it easier to put the pad on in the future.
Oh, you're so clever.
Okay, now I know where this has been because I washed it and dried it and put it in my cupboard, but you should always spur a pad before you use it, just to make sure there's not one little particle in there, because if there is, it'll put what I call arc scratches. An arc scratch looks like it's like an arc. And you know, sometimes the things I share in these videos are things I've learned hard way. I learned this the hard way, not cleaning your pad often. So all you got to do is just run that spur, and yes, it is like a little cowboy spur on the back of a boot of a cowboy. And what that'll do is it'll peel off any contaminants and it'll kind of fluff up the pad and get it ready to start buffing with.
And how often do you do that while you're working?
Well, if you were to watch me buff out this car, and I am going to buff out this entire car, you would see me clean my pad usually after every section of a panel. I clean my pad often, a lot. And the reason why is, a good question, thanks for asking. The reason why is cleaning the pad often does this. When you're buffing with the wool pad in a compound or a polish, you're removing paint, so that builds up on the face of the pad, but you also have the product you're using. It becomes spent and it builds upon. So you want to remove those two things. So just like if you think about it, if you buffed a section, you took a towel and wiped off that residue, you need to wipe off that residue, but you do it with the spur.
Makes sense.
And here's the benefit to that. So now when you get ready to buff the next section or the next panel and you put down fresh product, you're not diluting it or polluting it. So you're buffing more efficiently, and the residue you leave behind isn't as sticky, so it's going to wipe off easier. That makes the job easier on you. If you don't clean your pad, you keep gunking it up with fresh product and old product, the residue is going to wipe off more difficult. That tires you out, makes the job go longer. Okay, now to do this, we're going to start with the NSP 150. So currently, that's a well-chosen word. Currently, there is a strip of product. We have 3 NSP primers, and we also have the Z1, which is an AIO. So in the old days, we called this a cleaner wax or a cleaner sealant, depends on what the protection ingredient was. But this will remove swirls and scratches and lay down a ceramic coating at the same time. And I'm pointing this out because a lot of people think I'm OCD. They're so wrong. I'm actually lazy. And what I want to do is I want to cut, and if I can finish out with an AIO, it'll work like a polish, but leave the car protected, so I can do this in 2 steps. And that's kind of what I'm all about. Keeping my quality high, keeping my time investment low. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up my product using the 10 at 10 technique. And basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this polisher on. Okay, so it's locked on. And you lay your pad down flat. And then what you're going to do is you're going to tilt this up at about 10 degrees. And you want to look at this like it's a clock. So here's midnight, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, so on. And you get over here to 10 o'clock, and what you're going to do is you're going to pick this up at 10 degrees and run that strip, or that what's called a bead of product, in at the 10. And because this is spinning, as I look down on it clockwise, it's going to pick that strip and pull it into itself instead of throwing it all over Yancey and his camera lens. And if you're good at that, it would look like this. Then once you pick it up, you spread it around and then start working that panel. Now, I know it's controversial. A lot of people say you're supposed to hold that pad flat. And look, I agree. That works good when your pad is fresh, clean, and dry. But as that pad becomes wet with product and a buildup of removed paint, what happens is that pad's going to see the blackness. That's single stage metallic paint. You'd think it would be tan, because this is a tan colored single stage color. But what happens is different portions of the pad will start to grab more than the other portions of the pad, and it yanks you around. And now you spend all your upper body strength, your leg muscles, your back muscles, trying to control this thing, all because you're trying to hold it flat because some guy told you to hold the pad flat. So what I teach in my classes is once you spread the product out, go up on edge, okay? And it's going to make controlling the buffer easier. So now you won't get tired out, because besides doing this little section here, I got to do the whole car. I don't want to get all tired out. So I want to work intelligently, work smarter instead of harder.
Okay, now when you say on edge, obviously you don't mean put it right on the edge of it.
Just
what's
lift it
the
up.
angle that you're
I'll show you. So like about like that. And now, yeah, look at it. Look how easy this is to control. And I like to bring my cordless up to about the 3, which is about 1100 RPM. And it's just so easy to use the tool now. You know, Yancey, you've been working with me for, what, 12 years now?
A long time.
And nowadays in all my classes, by 9 o'clock in the morning, I'll have a rotary in your hand. We do not sit in chairs and look at a PowerPoint and you listen to me talk and talk and talk. I take you out to the garage, show you how to use the tools, and put you to work on a car so you learn by doing.
You're working within the first 5 minutes of the class.
Yeah, it's hands-on. There is no sitting. There's no chairs. Anyway, so back to holding the pad at angle. Now some people, and I get this, I cut my teeth calling on body shops in the 80s, so I get this. They'll say, well, Mike, if you go up on edge, you're only using this part of the pad, and you're going to put deep swirls in because you got more pressure on a smaller footprint. Now that's true if you're using caveman compounds. But I'm not using caveman compounds.
And if you're pushing really hard on the
Yeah, pushing hard and using a horrible pad. I mean, I got a junky pad in the cabinet here. I can show you what a junky pad looks like. This is a Lake Country pad. It's a high quality pad. So let me go ahead, and all I'm going to do for right now is I'm just going to buff out this rectangular area, and then we'll go to the polishing step. So let me go ahead and work this. So what I'm trying to do is level the paint to remove those deeper holograms the other guy put in. Now, besides the holograms, there's also fisheyes, and there's also all these thousands of straight line scratches. And I did a little test spot on the roof earlier, which is the same type of paint. And what I found out was, even though this is a single stage paint job, the paint is actually really hard. And that means it's more difficult to get all the deeper scratches out. So I have kind of a rule of thumb, and I'm going to share it here. Look how long this product goes, okay? I'm going to share the rule of thumb. When I'm cutting hard with a wool pad like this in a compound, which NSP 150 is kind of like a compound, and I make a standard 8-section pass, protocol over this section of paint, anything that comes out, that's good. If it doesn't come out, that's because it's deeper. And at some point, here, I want to get a good picture of that. You can even see it right here. That's aluminum flake oxidizing in the paint. Okay, so this is what I teach in my classes. Look, I want to do my best. I aim for 100% defect removal, but I also have to balance out how badly do I want to buy this guy a paint job when I actually got my own car I want to buy a paint job. So, you know, I tell my customers and I say, look, you know, I'm going to compound this. The shallow scratches are going to come out right away. The deeper ones are going to remain. If I start to chase them and I go through the clear coat, or in this case, I start to flip the flake, you're not going to be happy. So tell you what, let's set our expectations. We're going to make this car look so much better. It's still going to have some problems, but they weren't my fault. They're the person that owned the car before you that put all these scratches in. And so keep things in context, you know. Okay, I need a towel.
Not everything has to be a show car on Pebble Beach.
What's that now?
Said not everything has to be a show car on Pebble Beach.
Yeah, well, like I said, this is going to look so much better. Okay, so now if, Yancey, I think if you come down and look, I don't even know if you can see any holograms, but you can see that from where I'm looking, all the holograms are gone, all the scratches, swirls are gone. About the only thing that's really left at this point there are some deeper scratches, and I don't know if there's some right in here. And I could probably go and buff those out, but again, I made 8 solid section passes, and I'm going to do that for the rest of the car. So if it doesn't come out, it just tells me those deeper scratches are deeper, and maybe I don't want to get in trouble and make a mistake. A friend of mine once told me the difference between a professional and a hack is a professional knows when to stop.
True. It's so true.
You know, the road to buying someone else a paint job is paved with good intentions. Okay, so this is the Z1, and these come in these, this is a 32 fluid ounce package, and part of the reason for this, because most people are thinking they should get a 32 ounce plastic, but we have to keep this isolated from the air so the ceramic component doesn't try to cure out. So it comes in a package like this, and it's really easy to apply. Since this is a new pad, I'm going to go ahead and just put a couple of dollops on there, because some of that's going to actually go into the foam pad. I'll take and spread this out. And this is, by the way, is a foam polishing pad made also by Lake Country for the Dr. Beasley brand. You know, wherever I go, I take my product spreader with me.
That joke never gets old.
Okay, so there we got some product on the pad. And this, of course, is the Flex 3401 8mm gear-driven beast. All brawl, no stall. Okay, so first all I want to do is spread my product out. So here's what I have here. I've got a uniform layer of abrasive technology and the nanogel technology, and look at the pad.
Already.
So, already turning gray. That's the metallic flake. Okay, so now I'm going to make my standard 8-section pass protocol here. Now, something I haven't taught for a couple years, because we haven't worked for a couple years, is whenever you're detailing, here's a tip that will help you to speed up the process. Count your section passes out loud. I know it can sound silly, but here's what the human brain does. As I'm buffing up the car, not this section, but maybe an hour into it, maybe I'm down here in the lower fender, I'm starting to wonder, what's for dinner tonight? And then I forget what section pass I'm on. So I add a few more to make sure I did enough to match what my test spot was, so the car will look good uniformly around the entire car. But instead of guessing, just count your section passes out loud. You will cut about an hour of buffing time off of a detail job. And I've been teaching this for about 5 or 6 years now, and I have people that come to me all the time, like Mobile Tech Expo, and say, Mike, I implemented that technique, and you're right, saves me time.
People do, they lose track.
Okay, so I'm gonna do 8 section passes, and I'm gonna count them out.
Yeah.
One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, less pressure, 8 solid section passes. with the metallic paint on the pad.
You can definitely see the shine now.
Okay, wipe off. And here's a tip. Anytime you get to work in your car, always look at your towels and feel them with your hands. A lot of times your eyes may not see particles that are scratchy, but your hands will detect them. So I always tell people it takes hours to buff out a car. It only takes seconds to put a scratch in. That's usually because your towels, your drying towels, your wash mitts, your wiping towels become contaminated over time. You got to have a protocol in place to keep everything clean. Most people I meet don't have a protocol.
Yeah, no, they do not.
Okay, so there is a two-step process.
You want to get your light back out again?
Compounding and polishing, and it's done. But I got some more information I want to share, so here we go. So
take it back towards you.
This way?
Yeah, right there.
Okay.
Now go across.
Holograms, be gone.
No, go, keep going.
Oh.
There you go.
Yeah.
Back.
They're gone over the entire finish.
And go. There you go. All right.
Okay, so that's actually a really quick, simple, easy process. I mean, if you've never used a wool pad on a rotary, it's always a good idea to practice on something that's not important to you, like, you know, your wife or your girlfriend's car. But it does cut faster. The key is always use great abrasive technology. So the swirl that you leave behind is only from the fibers, and that means they're shallow, and the polishing step with the foam pad will pull them out really fast. Now, when I finish this whole car, here's something else I want to share, because I like to keep things real simple. The guy that owns this, he's a great guy, but he's really not the kind of guy that would go out and prep the paint and put a ceramic coating on it, okay? But here's what he will do. He will take a product like Bead Hero, if I recommend this to him, and I will, and I can teach him how to maintain my hard work.
Basically, how to touch his car.
How to touch his car. So, put a spritz or two of the Bead Hero on there, take your towel, spread it around, flip to a dry side, and then wipe it off. And now he has a ceramic coated finish that will repel water, to keep the car cleaner longer, create some same gloss and shine. And I know he can do it. It's just that simple. So again, I like to try to keep detailing really simple, not complicated. I just restored a hologram to finish out with a two-step approach using quality products, quality tools, quality pads, and then I'm going to share with my customer how to preserve my hard work so his car looks good and I look good over time.
Aww, so special. Yeah. All right, what other little tips do you got?
You know, that's really about it. I was thinking maybe this would be kind of helpful. Is this has like these fake, they look like louvers, but there's no opening.
Hold on.
And I could share how I would approach that with both a foam pad and a wool pad.
All right,
and
we got time.
Okay, so the first thing I would do for something like this, we also got A-pillars and things like that. But what I would take is I would take and put some product down. Whoop, that came out faster than I thought, but that's okay.
Some product?
Some product. And I would take, I take my finger, because everywhere I go, I take it with me, and I would just finger paint the abrasive technology to where I want to buff. Now this does two things. Can you guess what they are, Yancey?
It distributes it, and it gives you a visual indicator of where you need to go.
Exactly. And
it's like I've did this before with you.
Yeah, but the other thing it does is it put down lubrication, that's the nanogel, and it put down abrasive technology to cut with, okay? So now I'm going to go up on edge, so I want to make sure this edge is clean. So I'm going to even start around the back, come up here, bring my speed all the way up and clean all that stuff that was on there off. But I want to go around the edge like that. Okay. I just want to make sure there's nothing on that edge. Turn my speed back down. And now I know the pad is spinning this way, so when I come into this, it's going to pull it into itself instead of throwing it on you.
Thank you.
Now I'm just going to run this back and forth. I'm going to assume the guy before me also buffed out these fake louvers with his wool pad and caveman compound.
And you're just using light pressure, right?
Light pressure. And you're not even seeing a whole lot of gray coming off, but you are seeing some come off. But you can also see how shiny the paint's getting. So the oxidation's coming out, the swirls are coming out, and this is gonna match the rest of the car. But yeah, in fact, I'm not even pushing here, I'm just light. Now I'm gonna come up here. I'm actually gonna take and show some of this down in that little groove there. Watch your camera, don't let me get splatter on it. See that little pile there? Okay.
Now about the tips and everything like that, wouldn't that be less paint on the tips?
Yeah, thanks for bringing that point out. So usually paint, when you spray a car, sometimes gravity has an influence. And by that I mean the paint will naturally tend to run off the high point. So that's why I'm not buffing on the tops of these. I'm just buffing on the soft, gentle curve of them. But I'm just letting this thing go up on edge. And I always tell people, you know, the rotary buffer is actually really easy to use. You just got to spend some time behind the tool. And if you do that, you can make it dance on paint. Okay, now I want to come up here and just get that spot right there. Right at the end of the louvers, and also between this raised body line. I can actually get this one while I'm over here.
As long as you take your time and use proper technique, there should be no issues for anybody.
Yeah, and on these older cars, you see this piece of trim here? These a lot of times are stainless, chrome, or nickel. And I'll just go ahead and hit it too. What's funny is I see young guys tape it off. What are you taping that off for? You tape off plastic
because it's something
trim.
that's really good, the tape will stick to it.
You tape off plastic trim, but there's no reason to tape off bright work like that.
All right.
Okay, now, oh gosh, look how well that shined up.
I did.
It really did. Okay, and now I'll save this for when I do this section, but now I'm going to show you something else. This is kind of cool. So let's go back to our Z1, and I'm going to do something a little bit different here than I just showed you there. So I'm gonna put some product down. Come out of there. Okay, I'm gonna spread it out a little bit.
Ever so gently.
Okay. And now what I want is I want some of that product on the edge, because I'm gonna put this thing up on edge just like I did the rotary. Now I could do this.
Painstakingly paint it on.
Painstakingly put it on, but instead, here's what I'm gonna do. I'm going to bring this over here, tilt it up real slowly, and just slowly walk it into that product on the hood there, and that's going to prime the edge of my pad for me.
Look at you, see?
And
I think this is the reason why people like these videos, all these little tips that come out.
Now I can just come in here, lock my button, because just one second. Theoretically, if I just buff that with a wool pad on a rotary, what's up there?
You have holograms.
Holograms. I got to come take them out. It looks shiny, but I'm leaving holograms. That means the paint is opened up. It's more prone to oxidation. So that's going to come back. And here's another little tip. Where's my hand placement? Is it up here? No, it's here. So what I want to do is I want to get my hand out of the way so I can see where that pad's at. And because this is a gear-driven orbital, that pad's not going to stall out with all that increased pressure on just the edge. Boom. That's how I would tackle something like that.
All right, let me get over here. All right, you're on camera too?
And for what it's worth, even though I've been detailing cars since the late 70s, early 80s, I've never buffed out a Pacer before. And I have a term called bucket list. And bucket list to most people means the things you want to do before you die. I kind of use it kind of like that, but anytime I'm working on a car that I've never worked on and likely will never work on again, I call that a bucket list car. So for me, this is a bucket list car. By the way, the Gremlin's a bucket list car. I've been around these a few times in the 70s. I remember people having these things, but I never worked on one. So these are first times and probably last time cars for me.
All right.
Do you care if I pick this up and buff?
You can do what you want. You done with all your tips and tricks and everything?
I think so. I can just let that sit there and come back. It ain't gonna hurt nothing. So.
Okay. All right.
Actually, I want to just go ahead and spread around real quick.
All right, you do that.
Okay.
I am going to look through you guys' comments. So if you did leave any comments, I'm going to read through those really fast. Mike's going to finish that, so just give me 2 seconds and I'll be right back. All right. We got you guys going out there. Director and Success is in the house. Steve Austin is saying good day, everyone. And I want to be where you're at. You're a Caribbean island.
I do have one other thing I want to point out about.
That would be the place to go. Oh, I have to go detail a car down at the beach. Darn. All right. So, we have Kyle here. Ron Eilert is in. Shine Your Light Detailing saying hi to everybody. We have Salt Lake City. Thank you for tuning in. And of course, who is serious in the industry? There's a lot of people out there that are serious. I mean, have you not been on YouTube lately?
Has anybody out there watching ever detailed one of these or one of those?
I don't know. If you guys have, what do you call it? Post it up if you did this. Hi, Mr. James LaFleur. Hi, Jim. I'm on camera, Jim. They told me to be on camera, Jim. Okay, let's see here. Oh boy, the boss is here. The boss is here, that's funny, yeah. The boss is here. Okay, I'm here, always learning from Mike. They want to know, is the licorice dispenser in the car?
I do not think so. It has this funky plaid tweed kind of interior. It is very all original. Actually, runs and drives really good. I've driven it around a little bit. I get funny looks, that's one thing.
Okay. We have Grant coming in. Mike and Yancey are the Iron Man and War Machine combo we've always loved.
Just got a passion for polishing paint. You know, one thing I wanted to share was when we're talking about going up on edge, one of the ways, sometimes I have people that'll say, Mike, you're doing that wrong. And that tells me right away, they've never buffed out a boat. Okay, so when you think about a boat, at least most boats, the size of the hull don't go like this. They go like this. They go in a V shape. So that means if there's a boat here, and there will be a boat here really soon for our upcoming boat class, that means that hull, if my nose is right here, it's going away from me. So in order to buff that with a rotary, if I try to hold that flat and push that down, all my muscles, everything's going to be taxed as I'm trying to push that against the surface up and down. It's going to grab and yank me all over the place. So in my boat classes, what I do is I teach people, you brace yourself like this, and you put that thing on there, you go up on edge, and then you start running that buffer back and forth as you go down that V shape. And now it's easy on you, it doesn't tire you out. And that's important because even a small boat, if you're buffing it out by yourself, is a big boat.
They turn into a big boat.
So.
Oh, actually, yeah, I just did one with Scott Campbell up in Tennessee. $450,000 black boat that came from the dealer God, I'm trying to remember who it was, Nautica, or was it, I can't remember the boat manufacturer. After we posted, we thought that boat was bad. We actually got a good boat because all the other boats that people sent pictures of, like, oh, I've worked on one of the, we actually got one that was in good condition. I mean, the guys at the factory,
And it was still a lot of work.
Oh, it was tons of work. And being on black, oh, it was a nightmare.
So one of the things we do here at the operating room in sunny Stuart, Florida, is we have a number of classes coming up. We have some one-day classes and some three-day classes. And the three-day classes, what I like about them is we cover the most popular and profitable topics in one weekend. Any other class that you go to, we cover everything they cover in 2 to 3 days in one day. It's all working on cars, cool cars. But the class kind of goes like this. The first day is all paint correction. I'll have a rotary polisher in your hand by 9 o'clock. And that's if we started at 8:30. I used to start my classes at 7:30. And that means you'd have a rotary polisher in your hands by 8 a.m. But the first day is extremely horrific hammered cars. So I could teach multiple step or show car detailing first thing Friday morning. After that, I bring in cars that still need work, but they're not as bad as the first two cars, because then we learn one-step paint correction. And then after that, we learn how to use an AIO, like the Z1, to do one-step AIO correction in one step. So a one step actually is 2 steps, because you correct it with a compounder polish, then you got to actually seal the paint. So that's 3 different topics, 6 cars, sometimes 9 cars the first day. We also cover glass polishing, cosmetic, engine detailing. So that's a lot of topics to cover the first day. The second day, we do extreme prep wash in the morning, and that includes topical glass polishing, subsurface glass polishing, wet wash engine detailing, machine scrubbing tires, chemical decontamination, mechanical decontamination, and of course, washing the car. And I try to bring in convertible cloth top cars and vinyl top cars to cover cloth top and vinyl tops, all in the extreme prep wash process. We knock that out first thing on Saturday morning to get it out of the way, because here in Florida, even in the winter, it's hot, so we want to get that done. Then we come in and we cover machine dry sanding. And for that, I try to bring in, and I've been very successful, I bring in the type of cars that would really get sanded, okay? So if you think about it, your Honda, your Camry, or your Ford F-150 out in the parking lot, you usually don't sand those down because the paint is thinner than a Post-it note. So next time you got a Post-it note, tear one off the little notepad, hold it between your thumb and your finger, and the average Post-it note is about 3 mils. The clear coat on a new car is about 2 mils. That means the clear coat's thinner than a Post-it note. So you don't need to be sanding stuff like that. The kind of cars that get sanded is when someone restores something that was their high school car. They restore the engine, the running gear, the brakes, and at some point it goes into a paint booth, it gets a paint job, it comes out, it's got orange peel, the paint is thicker, and that's the kind of car in the real world that really gets sanded, and that's the kind of cars I bring in for my classes. So then we go over the Eagle Abrasives by Kovacs dry sanding system, and then we take all the techniques and tools that we learned on the first day, using a rotary, using orbitals to pull the sanding marks out and polish out to a swirl-free finish. And then Sunday, even though everybody's really tired, that's when we do boat detailing. And I bring in large boats, like 21 footers to 28 footers, that are dark in color, turned white with oxidation, and we go through a machine wet sanding process, rotary polishers, orbital polishers, all the way up to ceramic coatings. All 3 topics in 3 days. That means 1 set of airline tickets, 1 set of hotel rooms, 1 set of rental cars, and meals on the road. And you can knock it all out in a single weekend and have fun doing it and make new friends.
Okay, I have some people popping up here that want some questions. Sarah, do you put the same amount of pressure on polisher even if it's a single stage or light pressure?
A good question, and I would say on a single stage metallic, the answer is no. You don't want to push too hard. You actually want to have a nice, I would say it's probably about 5 to 8 pounds of pressure on the rotary as I run that wool pad. You really want to let the fibers, remember, fibers are an abrasive. Let the fibers and the abrasive technology kind of do the work for you, or you will leave tiger stripes in the paint. But always err on the side of caution. And in most cases, you should always do a test spot first, like I did up on the roof before I started here and found out the paint was kind of hard. But do a test spot first, and that'll help you to dial in how many section passes you got to do, the type of pad, the type of compound to go from neglected to respected.
Okay, got another one coming in here from Ron. Some of the newer car paint are uber thin. Yes. Uber thin. Mike, what is your minimum limit of paint thickness that you're willing to take a polisher to? Sorry.
I'm usually someone that's in the 3 mils, and at that point, I'm not going to do any that's total film build. If it's 3 mils, 4 mils, we're talking really thin paint. But one thing I want to point out to you is, I know there's some people out there that are always saying the clear coats are getting thinner and thinner and thinner. But if we just take the 30,000 foot view, and a car manufacturer, Ford, Chevy, Dodge, Toyota, Honda, BMW, they're building cars on scale, okay, millions of cars. And at some point, they're going to go through the painting process. And here's what they don't want. They don't want to put a lot of paint on it because that's the most expensive part of building a car. That's what I've been told. It's not even the motor, it's just the paint job. Okay, but they don't want to, we all want, hey, would you put an extra coat on my BMW M5 as it's going through the assembly line? They're going to do that. They're going to put the minimum on there. But at the same time, think about this. They can't have a year, 2, 3 years later, everybody that the dealership in Arkansas or Oregon or Maine have all their customers come back and go, hey, I love the car, but look at the paint, okay? So that means they gotta put enough paint on there to hold up over time. And you know, how long, I think 10 years is a kind of an average, but maybe 7 years, maybe it's only 5 years. So as much as everybody wants to think they're putting less and less clear coat on the cars, the manufacturers have to put enough on there to hold up so they don't create a customer relationship nightmare for their dealerships. So they're putting paint on the car. So here's where I think they're getting thinner. The E-coat, the primer, and the base coat. So when you do that paint thickness, you're still getting, you've got to have a certain amount of substance to hold up to the sun and the rain. And us micro-marring it when we wash it and dry it. So you have to have a certain amount of substance. So I don't get too worried about it. Here's what I do instead. I use quality products, quality pads, good tools, and common sense and experience when I buff out a car. And I just, like in over 30 years now, I just can't say I've ever really had a problem. New cars, old cars. So
that's called experience, people. Yeah. He has did it once or twice,
but that's
maybe 3 times.
But that's a common topic, you know.
Okay, and, got another one coming here. So is this just a cut and buff job? Is that what you would consider?
This was a cut, polish, and ceramic coat. Maybe you missed it before, but when I use Z1, this is laying down ceramic coat. At the same time, I'm using it to pull the holograms out. That's why I call it the lazy man technique. I don't got to do 3 steps. I did 2 steps. The 3rd step is when I tell the owner to go to drbeasleys.com and buy his own bottle of this to take care of it, which he already has. Yeah, I've done all his cars, so this is just one of many.
Okay, I have one more. Yes, the voice from another here. How often do you clean the foam pad during doing a car? Not the wool pad, the foam. And how do you do it usually? Thanks. Well, this is from Austria, Europe.
Yeah, so
Dominic, thank you for tuning in from over the seas.
Yeah, no doubt.
Thank you.
Thank you. So nylon pad, just scrape off any excess buildup. But here's what I teach people is don't try to buff out a car like the polishing step with 1 or 2 pads. If you're doing show car work, and this is show car work that I'm doing on the Pacer here, this is a show car. You might not like it yourself, but it is a show car. The next time it will be seen, like this badge says, will be at a Concours d'Elegance out on the grass at a show. But use multiple pads, and here's why. As you work around the car, whatever product you're using, the carrying agent will start to seep into the foam, and it softens it. Okay, foam cutting pads and foam polishing pads, if you feel them when they're dry, let me grab one. Okay, well, here's a Lake Country and here's another Lake Country.
All right, what are you doing?
So this is a Lake Country Udos foam cutting pad, and it actually has a sharpness to it. You can feel that when it's dry with your hand. Just feel it. It's sharp. It's also stiff, but it's that sharpness that you can actually feel. There's a sharpness to it. Okay, that's a foam cutting pad, and that's
you can
how
actually hear it.
Yeah, and that's how I teach people. People say, "Well, the foam pads. There's so many foam pads on the market. How do I know what the color code is?" Well, there's never going to be a universal color code because none of the pad manufacturers are going to get together and say, hey, let's all make our cutting pads military green. It's just not going to happen. So if you have some pads and you have no idea what they are and you can't get to the internet to go look them up because the internet will tell you what they are, just take your hand and feel them and compress them. So this one's very sharp, it's very stiff. That's a cutting pad. This one still has some sharpness. It's a lot lighter, but there's some sharpness there, and it's got a little more cushion. That's a polishing pad. Down here is a finishing pad. It's really soft and it compresses really easy. In fact, I put makeup on with these in the morning.
Oh goodness.
Sorry, had to go there.
There.
But here's what happens to your point to your question. As you're working around a car, and you're applying product to it. And now think about this. I never see anybody point this out. Okay, so everybody's always telling everybody to put 3 pea-sized drops on. Okay, so put your 3 pea-sized drops. I like nickel-sized drops. I want a layer of abrasive technology. I want a layer of lubrication. Okay, so you put your 3 pea-sized drops or your nickel-sized drops, and you turn that over. For that brief second, where's that product going? Into the foam. When you turn this polisher on, any polisher, I got Rupes, I got Griots, I got Porter Cable. If you got an orbital polisher and you turn it on, that orbital action, whether it's gear driven or free spinning, is violent, okay? And what that's gonna do is it's gonna take that liquid you put on there and shove it into the foam. So as you work around the car, your pad gets wetter and wetter. It becomes saturated with product, and your sharpness goes away. So a foam cutting pad becomes a foam finishing pad. A foam polishing pad becomes a foam finishing pad. So instead of trying to clean the pad and eke through a detail job with 1 or 2 pads, if you're doing show car work, figure on 1 pad per panel. You know, if you're just doing good work and production work, then you could probably buff out a car like this with 1, 2, 3, 4 to 5 pads. But just keep that in mind. As the pad becomes wet, it stops doing the thing it's supposed to be doing. If it's a cutting pad, it quits cutting. If it's a polishing pad, it quits polishing. They all become finishing pads. And on that topic, I had a guy contact me just this week, and he told me he was using a microfiber pad. It wasn't this, it was another big name brand, and he's using their polishes too. And he sends me a text message. He says, "Hey Mike, I just got done polishing this car and I'm seeing micromarring everywhere." And I go, "Well, what are you using?" And he says, "Well, I'm using this product and a microfiber pad." And I say, "Take and put a tape line down over a section you've buffed, and then switch to a foam pad, use the same chemical, and make a few passes over it and see if the micromarring goes away." Comes back, says, "Yeah, it went away." Well, again, fibers are abrasives. So you put something like this on a DA and you're on soft or medium soft paint, and the fibers themselves will micromar. You know, a lot of people don't know the history of microfiber pads. I do. And they were introduced to work on the polishing decks at assembly lines, and then they were later converted to help switch the production detailing at the auction houses and at dealerships off of rotaries onto DAs. In order to make a free spinning tool like a Porter Cable have more cutting power, you needed to increase the cutting strength of the pad, thus the microfiber pad. So, but just keep that in mind.
You good?
Walking encyclopedia.
I know you are.
Too much knowledge about car
If you
paint.
guys aren't, bookmarking these videos, you probably should. A lot is in here that I don't want to be in here, but it's there. All right, we have one more coming in here. We got Dan. You remember Dan?
Yes.
Dan. Hi, Dan.
Detail Dan.
The detail doctor. That's what he is in the house. I love to see the paint up close. Always great content. Good to see you guys. Jim, great job getting these guys back on point. We're on point. Thanks. 3-day classes are hand down, real work, real results. And yes, they are. If you guys have never been to one, you need to go to one. Hey, we have somebody coming in here. Mauricio. You got a long name. He's following from Brazil. Thank you. Whoops. Thank you for tuning in from Brazil.
I'm always wanting to go to Detailer Fest in Brazil.
I would love to go down there too. I would absolutely love to go there. Here, Dan actually has a question for you. Okay, since working with the Z1, have you run into issues with removing product or short work time? I've used it as inconsistent results with removing it.
I have on some paint systems and sometimes in high humidity, high heat, which we have here. The good news is the head chemist, owner, and CEO of Dr. Beasley's has been in the laboratory, and I think you're going to see some cool new products and new improvements coming in all the product line. So stay tuned. We'll be talking about those in the future.
Okay.
But Z1 I'm a big fan of AIOs, and anytime I can use an AIO instead of a polish, because it'll do the same thing as the polish, but in this case leave it ceramic coated, I'm killing 2 birds with 1 stone. I'm done with the car faster, kept my quality high, and loving the results. So.
Sorry, I'm getting my my coworker here,
Your protege.
my protege, in because we're right at an hour. So
Wow.
I thought that went by fast.
It did go by fast.
That went by really
I want to do a
fast.
plug for a couple classes I got.
Well,
coming
that's
up.
what I was coming over to make sure that you do. That's why I'm here.
Okay, so we have a 3-day class coming up. And,
When?
It's coming up in about 3 weeks. So it's Friday, November 10th, Saturday, November 11th, and Sunday, September 29th. That's a Friday.
I was going to say, that's like in a couple of weeks.
It's a couple weeks, yeah. So September 29th, that's a Friday, Saturday the 30th, and October 1st. So it's a 3-day class. And that's going to do all paint correction on Friday, dry sanding and stream prep wash on Saturday, and boat detailing on Sunday.
And that is in Oconomowoc?
No, that's here.
That's here?
Yeah, September.
Where's the one that you're going?
That's not this weekend, but next weekend.
Next weekend. There any openings left?
I
on
think
that?
there's 2 spaces left in that chair, but
Okay.
yeah, not this weekend, but next weekend. So that's September 21st and 22nd. There's a 2-day class. That's a Thursday, Friday class. And our 2-day class, we're going to do extreme paint correction on Thursday, and then we have 2 custom cars with custom paint jobs. We're going to go over dry sanding using rotaries and the NSP line on Friday.
Oh, cool.
And so that's coming up, not this weekend, but the next weekend. You can go to drbeasleys.com. There's 2 spaces left in that, and then it's sold out.
Okay, then the one that you're talking about is the next class that's located here
yep.
in Stuart, Florida.
That's September 29th, 30th, and October 1st. So it's kind of that transition weekend from September to October. And then we're going to hold another 3-day class, and that's the weekend after SEMA. So that's November 10th, 11th, and 12th.
Where's that one?
Right here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so we
all
got
the classes are going to be down here?
I've had so many people contact me and say, hey, Mike, I want to take a class. Well, you know what? I'm putting them on. I'm going to be here. I'm going to have the cars and the boats here, all the tools, chemicals, the sanding discs. All you got to do is clear your schedule and get here.
All right, awesome. The information will be on all the socials and also on the website.
Yeah.
And if anything, always hit him up. He'll gladly send you an email.
Yeah, and I usually give my phone number out. You know what's funny is my wife was talking to me about this last night. She says, why do you give your phone number out? I go, look, honey, no one ever calls me. But you can. If you want to give me a call, ask about the question, hey, Mike, what do I get to do? You know, or some guys go, hey, Mike, you know, I'm getting older. I'm taking your class. I'm older. Do you actually have a chair? I might need one. Yes, we have a chair.
There is. There's 5.
5 chairs.
There's
over
5
there.
chairs. That is the most he's ever had in one place at one time. I can contest to that.
Those are the neighbors. They're going away. We have to go buy a chair.
Oh, well, never mind. He has 0 here.
We have 0 chair. Well, my office chair.
Okay, so with that being said, we have classes coming up, so stay tuned. If you want to get signed up, sign up now. Pick the dates. Obviously, there's only 2 left for the 2 weeks
In
for the
Oconomowoc.
closest.
Yep.
Then he has 2 full classes coming up over the next couple months.
Yep.
So how many are in each class?
I run my classes up to 20 people,
Okay,
but I bring in enough cars and big boats for everybody to. And if you look, we are wired and powered to run 20 rotaries, pushing hard, and never burrow a breaker.
All right, so we have 3 classes. One's coming up immediately, 2 spots left. So if you want to get on it, if you're close to Wisconsin, or you just want to go get some cheese, go there. Or if you want to go see the Harley Davidson,
Museum.
yeah, that thing was amazing.
It was.
Thank you, Lake Country, for taking us. That was a fun time. So with that being said, that was your classes.
Yep.
Now you're going to be out at SEMA. For those that are going to SEMA,
Yep.
who are you going to be with and where?
So I'll be out at SEMA Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. The first year I'm actually leaving early on Friday.
Lucky
This will be
you.
my 21st year at SEMA. But I'll start out at the Lake Country booth from 9 to 11. I'll be at the Flex booth from 11 to 2. From 2 to 3, I'll be at the Braun Brush, Woolly Brush Company booth. And then I'll be at the Grit Guard booth from 3 to 5, 3 days in a row.
And that's the same schedule every day?
Same schedule every single
Okay.
day.
All right.
Buffing on paint,
Then
answering questions.
You're going to post that schedule on your social media?
Yeah. It's already on my forum, so it's up there.
All right. So for his schedule, they'll make sure that they have it posted up. And if you're not following any of the Dr. Beasleys, it's at Dr. Beasleys. Type it into any one of your social medias and it'll pop up. Be sure to like, follow, share, and all that other good stuff. Now, as of next week's live class,
Yes.
you guys are not doing next week. You guys are going to be...
We're doing next week, but we're doing it live from the Lake Country Manufacturing Plant in Oconomowoc, Washington. So we do these at Wednesday, 4 p.m. Eastern time. I think they're an hour behind us.
Yes, I think they are.
So we're going to be setting up. So you're going to see all the tools, the cars the students are going to work on, but we'll
Kind of
be
behind the scenes thing.
Exactly, behind the scenes. We'll be live at Lake Country Pads getting set up for our 2-day class.
All right, so that'll be a really interesting one. What else do you have going on?
That's kind of about enough. I got 4 classes at Mobile Tech Expo.
Okay.
So that'll be my 13th year at Mobile Tech Expo.
Okay, awesome. Then with that, I think that is everything. So thank you all for tuning in. And once again, I really appreciate you guys tuning in. This makes us have job security. And also, this is a lot of fun because I like putting these on. And yeah, I dealing with this guy all the time. So we see you next time. Okay. Bye.
Thanks for
Wayne's
tuning in.
World, party on Rockton.